Hey, what's going on, everybody? In today's video, I'm going to discuss for loops. So a for loop is a statement that will execute a block of code for a set amount of times. Now, if you're unsure how many times you'd like to iterate, then you would want to use a while loop. But obviously in today's video, we know how many times we want to iterate, so we're going to use a for loop. So in today's examples, I'm going to show you how you can leverage a for loop to loop through a string, a list, and even a range. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So in our first example, I'm going to show you how to leverage a for loop to loop through a string. So we're going to first start out with the variable of first underscore name, and we're going to set it equal to the string of Jace. Now, in order to initiate our for loop, we have to make sure that we're using the keyword for. And then the next word in the for loop is going to represent our iterator. Now, you can name this iterator anything that you like. It's best to name it something relevant to what it will be iterating through. For the sake of this example, I'm just going to use the letter X. And then the next word that needs to be included in our for loop statement is the word in. And this final word in this particular example is going to represent the variable that we're going to be looping through. And that variable, of course, is going to be first underscore name. And what we'll like done once we execute this block of code is we would like to print the value of X. And what this should represent is X is going to represent each character that's within the variable statement here. So what this is going to do once we execute this block of code, we're going to see that it printed the letters within the variable first underscore name. That is how we would use a for loop to loop through the characters within the variable first underscore name. So the next way that we can leverage our for loop is to print the values of a list. So let's just say that we have a variable named list, and it is holding the values of strings within that list. So what we would like to do is print each name from the list. And in order to do so, we will use a for loop in order to loop through the list and print each name to the terminal. So in order to initiate our for loop, we'll use the keyword for, and then we're going to name our iterator something relevant to what it will be doing. So we'll say for kid in list. And this is going to close off our for loop. And what we'll like to do is print the value of kid. So now if we go and we run our code, we'll see that in the terminal, it is printing each name within our list. So the next example I'd like to show you with a for loop is how it can be leveraged to print a range. So Python has a built-in function named range that will allow it to print from all numbers from 0 to the number designated within the calling of range. So we're going to use it to print each value from 0 to the number that we indicate within the function range. So what we'll do is we'll type in for X in range. And for this example, we'll say that we want to go from 0 to 5. And then once we close off our for loop and we want to print X, we'll see that we get back 0 through 4. And the reason we get back 0 through 4 is that range goes all the way to the number that you designate, but it does not include that number. So if we wanted to go to 5, we would go to 6, and if we wanted to go to 4, we would stop at 5. So let's just say that we wanted to create a simple little countdown that we're indicating that the event will be starting in 3, 2, 1, or we're counting down to Happy New Year, or there's a big fight that's getting ready to take place and we want to have a simple countdown, and before we indicate that the fight begins at 0. So if we wanted to do something like that, a for loop would be great to help us get that accomplished. What we'll do is we will start with a for loop, and we'll say for X in, and we'll call it a built-in Python function called reversed. And inside of reverse, we want to have a range. And for this particular countdown, we want to go from 3 to 1. So remember, range will go to the number not including that number. So our first number means that we want to go to 1. That's where we want to stop. And that second number is going to be where we want to stop. And we want to stop at 3. So we'll say from range 1 to 4, which will mean that we'll stop at 3. That'll be printed to the screen. And within our statement, we want to print X, which will represent the numbers 3, 2, 1. And then once our for loop is finished, we want to print to the console the word fight. And now that we're finished, we're going to run our block of code. We see that we get 3, 2, 1, and then fight. So there you have it. That's for loops in the nutshell. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'll see you in the next one.